Hey, welcome back to the Primetime Power Show. We're going to talk about something that's been a trend in all the news media all over. We're going to talk about human trafficking and what is it? I've been reading that human trafficking is a form of slavery that people just bring people in. It might be a little kid, it might be an adult, but anyway, it's a form of slavery. Bring them over seas or from Texas or maybe from any parts of our region of the state of the United States. It's a bad thing how you could take somebody and just bring them and make them slaves at your own will. A lot of them get involved in prostitution, especially the 13-year-old or 14-year-old in that prostitution type world. Not only that, even men, even part of the prostitution world. How do we stop human trafficking? Well, it's hard to stop human trafficking. Simple fact is because you got so many people out there involved in it. It's usually when human trafficking happens, it's usually somebody, a family member that bring a friend over or another friend to bring them over. And as they get involved in human trafficking, they get jobs, they get incorporated into society, such as I would put it, such as our cities, our local cities, our state, and our country. How do we stop it? It's hard. You have agencies that works hard and hard every day to try to stop that. But it's a big business. Let's be real. It's a big business. Here it is. You got somebody. It's like an escort service too. Some rich person say, I want a young lady to work for me. I'll bring her over. But you got to give me $10,000, and she's your slave, or she's your woman, or she's the one that's going to be working with you constantly, consistently. That human trafficking is a very dangerous thing. It has no name on it. It gets people from all ages, all groups, all colors, all races. It's human trafficking. I believe that it's some right here in the city of Philadelphia. And state government is trying to identify these individuals. They've been doing big stories on KYW, CBS 3, NBC 10, Fox News Network. Even the local news channel have been doing a big story on human trafficking. Some politicians have even focused on that because they know the importance of somebody's child out there is missing. Even if you look at some of the missing children reports, all of a sudden, like this case we had a couple years ago. Matter of fact, it might have been last year, where a young man had a lady kidnapped her early and had a baby by her, and she lived in his house for years. And then all of a sudden, she finally was free. This was happening. People in basements. I remember Gary Heineck, a former human trafficking, when he was on 40th and Walnut, when he used to come there at McDonald's. I used to work at McDonald's, 4th and Walnut, and I actually had breakfast with this young man. But then he was about 40, then not knowing that he was a murderer, had people a dungeon with women in his dungeon, but human trafficking. He had them down there. People go to him. Human trafficking also comes from using drugs, because somebody can transfer you. I got these drugs for you. You owe me a favor. Go see this person or go see that person. It just doesn't stop at men. It stopped with women too. Women can human traffic other women too. It's just children. You're speaking of innocent children that can be part of the human trafficking world. How do we stop that? We got local governments that's working hard to stop it. They're working real hard to stop it. And guess what? We're going to stop it. But we're going to come back. Not now, but we're going to come back. We got a guest that we're going to be calling his house in a few minutes. This guest worked for the Covenant House, and he does work on things such as human trafficking. We got to be real vigilant on it. We got to make it happen. We got to stand up. We got to be vigilant in our own neighborhoods. Sometimes you see these individuals, somebody you never seen in your neighborhood before, walking the streets of Woodland Avenue, South Philly, West Philly, North Philly, Northeast, Delaware County, all over our cities. They're here. They're lost. They're a lost cause, because the simple fact is they're hooked on drugs, heroin, cocaine, crack. A lot of them get caught up in the crack world and don't know what to do, and it's hard to get out. You ask them where they're from. I'm from Allentown. How do you get way down here? That's local human trafficking. What do we do? Well, this is what we do. We focus on it. We work hard. We be vigilant in our own neighborhoods. Help that individual that needs help, that's lost. They strung out on drugs. They strung out doing prostitution. Even the male prostitutes be out there now. They're out there. Human trafficking. We're going to take a break for the calls, and we'll be right back with our guests. All right. When I seen your name, I was like, oh, that name sounds very familiar. I did say that. I want you to know that. But listen, we're going to get right to the point. Tell me more about yourself before we get into the issue of human trafficking. Just let me know what you do.
Okay, I work at Covenant House. We're a shelter for runaway homeless and trafficked youth in the Germantown section of Philadelphia. It's a 51-bed crisis center. We do street outreach, so we go out into the streets of Philadelphia to contact these kids who are on the street. And we have transitional housing in Kensington. And that's our transitional housing program where kids can go there to live for up to 18 months so they can get themselves together and be able to get out on their own. So that's pretty much what we do. And then we also chair the Philadelphia Anti-Trafficking Coalition, which is a coalition working with all groups from all across Philadelphia to combat human trafficking in all its forms.
Okay, I like that. So now let's get to the meat of it and the real good part of it, the human trafficking piece. What is that? Describe that.
Yeah, well, human trafficking in a nutshell is modern-day slavery. What is specifically, as far as legal definitions, is commercial sex for labor that's induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person is under the age of 18. So it could look like a lot of different things. It could look like the young lady who's being sold on a street corner by her pimp. It could be the janitor who's cleaning up the office building who's being forced to clean the buildings. It could be a nanny who is actually, a caregiver in someone's home who's being beaten and held against her will and forced to work long hours. So depending on what form of human trafficking you're talking about, it could look very different depending on where you are.
Give me one of them horror stories about human trafficking. There's something you had to go, wow, oh my God, why did this happen? Do you have one?
Sure. We work with kids all the time who are trafficked. And, I had a kid who was trafficked all across the state of Pennsylvania, originally recruited via Facebook by someone she trusted, and a friend brought her to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And when they got there, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, she was forced to work out of a hotel room providing sex to men by her pimp. She went there with her son, and once she got there, this pimp forced her to provide sex to men outside the hotel room. Initially, she said no, and she was beaten and raped and held in the hotel room. They then grabbed her son and told her, if you ever want to see your little boy again, you'll do whatever we tell you to do. And so she felt trapped, so she had to work for these guys, and she was trafficked all across the state of Pennsylvania. I lost count at 22 locations that there was a stop along the Pennsylvania Turnpike. She was being advertised on Backpage.com and being sold all along the way to these different hotel rooms. So she was trafficked all across PA into New Jersey, South Jersey, Central Jersey, New York City, and then back into Central Jersey where she saw an opportunity to get away. She was able to grab her son and run, and the hotel clerk hid her for several hours until Covenant House was able to go out and get her and bring her into the shelter.
Wow, I am glad that y'all snatched her up, and that is a good thing. So you were working at where you're working at. I know you get these horror stories and stuff, but what is the city of Philadelphia, and then you are in the city of Philadelphia. What is the city of Philadelphia in the state of Pennsylvania? Now, they've been focusing on trafficking all this week.
Yeah.
What message will you give that individual out there to don't do that, and what are some of the things we have to look out for?
Yeah, a big thing is the red flags for human trafficking are runaways. When you're talking about U.S. citizens, you're talking about runaways. Kids who are runaways or throwaways from the system, because traffickers prey on your most vulnerable population. So they're going to prey upon your runaway kids, your system kids, because, they're most vulnerable. Promise them a better life, promise them love, all kinds of stuff. And that's how trafficking starts. It's the promise of a better life or love. Traffickers sell love. And once these kids get caught up, it's too late by the time they realize what's happening. So a lot of times these kids get caught up, and by the time they realize what's going on, it's turned into a nightmare. And the same thing with the international victims. With international victims, they're often promised, the opportunities of a better life. Come to the United States, be able to send money home to your family, take care of your family. And then they get here, and they're promised, an opportunity to maybe work inside of a restaurant, and then they have to work inside of brothels and massage parlors in our city. And they're forced to provide sex to whatever men are brought into the location. So, it starts off as a dream or the promise of a better life, and then it ends up being a nightmare for a lot of these people.
Has anybody ever been apprehended in the city of Philadelphia for trafficking young kids?
Yeah, there's been a lot of cases in Philadelphia where they've been apprehended and prosecuted as well. They're prosecuting a couple of cases right now. And then the first case of human trafficking in the state of Pennsylvania to be prosecuted was actually in Delaware County. not far from, Southwest Philadelphia, where I grew up, that this young lady was being trafficked online. And DA's office out in Delaware County prosecuted the first case of human trafficking in the state of Pennsylvania, and that was just a couple of years ago, and that was right out there in Delaware County.
Has anybody died from human trafficking that you know of?
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, with trafficking, the individuals are being held against their will. If they don't comply with their traffickers, they're beaten. There's often physical violence. They don't receive medical treatment until it's absolutely too late. I know we did a training once at a hospital downtown, and the doctors there told us that they had a woman who had been trafficked, and by the time the traffickers brought her into the ER, it was too late. There was nothing they could do to save her.
Wow. Your agency, you deal with it constantly, consistently. What is something that you could tell the average man, because you have to reach these people? This message needs to go to everybody. What would you tell churches and clergy? What would you tell them?
Well, a big part of it is they have to get involved because human trafficking is so widespread. Most people aren't aware it's the second largest criminal industry in the world, only second to the drug trade. That's the second largest criminal industry in the world. Most people aren't even aware that that's the case. So people need to get involved and start to understand what human trafficking is, because I've been working with victims for going on 15 years now, and not a single one of them ever identified as a victim. So people have to be aware of what human trafficking is, so when they see the signs of it, they know how to react, and they recognize it when they see it, and they can get help for the individuals. So that's a big part of it. These individuals don't often identify as victims of human trafficking. So we got to get people trained. We got to be aware of the signs, so that when we see human trafficking, we can call and get help. How do
you contact your local authorities when you see a possible case of human trafficking and you've been seeing this? What do you do? How do you contact the 12th District or Darby or the feds? What do you do?
Well, I mean, if it's something immediate where a kid's being, snatched off the street, then you can call 911. If it's something you're not sure about, like maybe you were out at a dinner and, the kitchen helper being beaten or something like that, and you saw that, then you can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. It's 1-888-3737-888. If you think you suspect trafficking, but you're not sure, again, you can call that hotline, and that's 1-888-3737-888. Anyone can call that hotline anonymously or leave their information with any tips about human trafficking, and that information is routed back to local law enforcement or to federal law enforcement, depending on the situation.
As you know, it's an election coming up this year, and it's a lot of candidates running. How would you propose this question to those candidates? Whether it be mayor, governor, state rep, whatever. What question would you pose to them? What type of bills would you like to be introduced to help? Is it more funding? What? Talk to me.
Yeah, a big part of it is funding, because there are a lot of agencies in the city of Philadelphia who work with victims. Dawn's Place, Covenant House, Salvation Army, most of which are doing this without any kind of funding from the city or the state. So they've been working with victims for years without any kind of funding. So we'd love to see some sort of funding to address this issue. The other thing I'd like to see the mayor candidates take a look at is a runaway problem that we have, especially within our kids in the child welfare system. Who's looking for these kids? Because these are the most vulnerable kids to begin with, and they're running away, and is anyone even looking for these kids? So I think we have to do a better job of trying to find our kids who are out there who are missing.
You stand by. We got to take a pause for the calls on the Primetime Power Show. I'll be back with you in 30 seconds. Welcome back to the Primetime Power Show and what you need to know. Hey, Hugh, I want to ask you a question. How can you identify somebody that you think is being human trafficked? How can a person identify that person?
You're going to look for signs of abuse, and typically with human trafficking, look for signs of abuse in areas that would not necessarily interfere with trafficking, because it is a business. So, for example, traffickers aren't going to beat kids around the face, but maybe more like in the lower back areas. It's not going to interfere with being able to sell these kids. So you're going to look for signs of abuse, signs of control. Oftentimes, when you're talking about human trafficking, it presents like a domestic violence situation, because the trafficker will not want you to talk to this kid by themselves. So they'll give you all kinds of excuses as to why you can't talk to this kid alone. And then typically when you're talking about U.S. citizens, you're talking about kids who are with someone who's twice their age, a male who's like 40 and they're 15, 16 years of age, and they're not their legal guardian or the parent. Those are some of the red flags. And then other things are like identification. So like when you're talking about U.S. citizens, traffickers will often take their identification, their birth certificates, things like that. And they're talking about international victims. They're going to maintain passports passports or green cards and things like that. They're going to hold those things against the individuals. So it's very much a controlled situation, often like a domestic violence abusive situation.
How much federal funding have y'all been getting, or state funding, or city funding y'all been getting for this program? Any?
Federally, the Health and Human Services has some funding available. Just recently, the Salvation Army got some funding here in Philadelphia to start to provide services. But prior to that, there's been very little funding provided. Most of the agencies that have been doing the work for human trafficking victims have been privately raised their money. They just don't have funding from the city or the state or federally. I mean, it wasn't until very recently that there was actual federal money available in the city of Philadelphia to work with human trafficking victims.
Has anybody wrote a campaign, some type of campaign that wrote to a Congress, a Congressman Bob Brady, or a senator, some senators out there, Finazzi, somebody out there? I mean, do y'all do a writing campaign? Because this looks like it needs some serious funding for this human trafficking. So, I mean, is anybody listening?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to do some more campaigning around that. I know at the state level, Senator Greenleaf actually passed a bill in the last legislative session. Senate Bill 75 became Act 105 that makes funding available for, human trafficking providers through grants. The problem is that the bill passed, but they made no funding available. I know Senator Greenleaf continues to work on that. He's been a great champion at the state level. Senator Greenleaf, Senator Leach have proposed numerous legislative efforts at the state level. So, we need to continue that. But again, the funding has not trickled down yet to agencies that are actually doing the work.
So my question to you is, why couldn't your agency or other agencies do their own PR work and create a YouTube commercial or Facebook commercial and talk about human trafficking, like a public service now, PSA? Why couldn't they do something like that?
Yeah, we have done things like that. We do have a Facebook page about the coalition, and we do events all throughout the city, and then we do fundraising events, and we do awareness events, because January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and we had events all throughout the city, everything from movie viewings to talking to different churches, and, people are responding, absolutely. We have a lot of churches all over the city who have been really receptive and open, but the funding issue continues to be a problem.
Okay, I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you about what's the training for a program such as that? How can a person get trained to identify human trafficking?
Yeah, they could contact us. We can provide training for individuals about human trafficking. We train social service agencies. We've trained law enforcement agencies. Anyone who needs the training can contact us, and we can provide the training. That's something that we do. We've gone out and trained departments, probation, police, you name it, and we go out and do those trainings. And again, with a fee, because we have to pay for the cost of the training. But we come out and do the trainings all the time.
Okay. My question to you is that now, do y'all do, you said with agencies, social service agencies, do y'all train these agencies?
Yeah, we provide training to social service agencies. They can contact us, either call Covenant House directly, and we can get the information they need and set up a training with them. That would be no problem. We do training for social service agencies all the time.
How can we get the average Joe to get involved? Joe, Sally, Susie, how can we get them involved? How can we make them see the importance of this? Because parents are scared to come forth and talk about their kids. Parents are fearful that, that their kids bring their money in for the parent.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it is getting everybody involved. Everything from simple things about like posting the hotline number. Anyone can do that. Get the hotline number and post it, and they're free. You can download them online from Health and Human Services at rescuerestore.org. You can get banners, you can get flyers, and you can post an National Human Trafficking Hotline. That's the easiest thing that anyone could do to get involved. As far as the campaigns that are going on, as far as legislation, they could like the coalition on Facebook and follow any kind of updates regarding whether there's a bill pending. We put the bills on the Facebook page as far as what's pending. If there's going to be a lobbying day, you can get involved that way as well. You can get involved with our coalition as well. The coalition meets once a month or once every other month on the fourth Tuesday of the month. So if they want to get involved in helping out with the coalition and volunteering, And I tell people all the time a big part of this for me is, it's not waiting for these kids to be trafficked to get involved. It's getting involved ahead of time so these kids don't become trafficked. So, part of it for me is getting people involved in being mentors and coaches, and so that these kids aren't vulnerable to traffickers because they have positive adults in their lives as opposed to not having those role models in their lives. So, getting involved that way, let's not wait for these kids to get trafficked. Let's be coaches, mentors for these kids now so they don't end up being trafficked in the first place.
All right, give me some numbers. What numbers can we call? The Covenant House and the 800 number. Give me those numbers.
Okay, so the hotline is 1-888-3737-888, and you could call Covenant House at 215-951-5411. And that's our shelter located in the Germantown section of Philadelphia. We also operate a hotline, and that's 1-800-999-9999. It's the 9 line. If you have information about trafficking you'd like to report as well. And then again, if you see something happen, see something, do something, call the 911 if you see something that you suspect is trafficking.
What are the future plans of the Covenant House or the coalition? What's the future plans?
Well, we're hoping that this legislative session at the state level, Senator Leach is going to offer a safe harbor bill. And basically what that means is kids under the age of 18 won't be charged as prostitutes. We need to change the law in the state of Pennsylvania. Currently, the law in the state of Pennsylvania has minors that can be charged as prostitutes as opposed to getting them treatment. So we want to get that law changed. Senator Greenleaf is working on getting that bill introduced. So that's something we want to work on. We want to work on the hotels in around our area that are supportive of this, and allow this to go inside their hotel rooms. That's something we need to work on too. And in addition to massage parlors throughout the city of Philadelphia, we need to get a bill passed regarding licensing and requiring those places to have some oversight for those places. Because right now, those massage parlors operate with no oversight because there's a hole in the law because they're not considered massage parlors. They're considered a different type of business, so they don't have to answer to the massage rules. So there's no oversight for these massage parlors, and you're talking about international victims who are trafficked through these massage parlors. So we got to work on legislation there as well.
Listen, how can people donate?
They can go donate to Covenant House. Go to our website, www.covenanthouseta.org, and donate. And if you want to donate specifically to Coalition, you can just, in the note on the memo note for the donation, just say Coalition to donate to Covenant House. You go to our website, or you can come by any one of our locations as well. Our shelter is at 31 East Armac Street in the Germantown section of Philadelphia, and they can make donations there as well.
Listen, you've been on the line with the Primetime Power Show. I'm gonna repeat that. You are on the line with the Primetime Power Show. So what's your favorite station?
Primetime Power Show.
Say it again so the world can hear you.
Primetime Power Show.
Thank you for calling, Hugh, and thank you again. We appreciate everything you said today. Listen, I'm gonna stay in touch with you so we can get some PSAs out for you about this, about what's going on for human trafficking. Again, thank you for calling the Primetime Power Show. You can go eat dinner now. Peace.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks a lot.